So if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're not happy with how your microphone sounds whenever you're live streaming. I spent a lot of time dialing in my setup and I'm really happy with how my setup sounds. And all the time I get compliments whenever I'm in voice chat and people hear my microphone. They're like, are you a streamer? Like, what the heck are you using? And I use this one piece of gear that I don't hear anybody talking about. And it's really important to the sort of sound that I get. So I figured I'd make this video to kind of explain the special piece of gear that I use that actually makes the most difference in my entire setup. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me show you an example of how much of a difference this piece of gear makes. Okay, so here's a blind comparison between two different microphone setups. Now, before we get too deep into this, I want to highlight that I'm about 3 inches away from both of these microphones, which is pretty important to getting the sort of sound that I'm getting. One of these setups costs less than $200, and the other one costs well over $2,000. Okay, so which is which? This one is the $200 setup, and this one is a setup that costs over 10 times as much. And yes, I actually choose to use the cheaper setup for gaming and live streaming, and I get so many compliments and people ask me all the time about what my setup is. So what's my secret? Now, if you were just listening on your phone speakers, you probably didn't hear that much of a difference, which is maybe just a testament to how good the $200 setup sounds or how overkill the $2,000 setup is. But if you're listening closely and you did hear a difference, most of the difference was that the cheaper setup had EQ, compression, and a noise gate applied. While microphones can affect the character of your sound a little bit, with EQ and compression, you could shape your sound significantly more. In fact, it makes so much of a difference that I would rather use a $20 microphone and EQ and compression than a $400 microphone and no EQ and compression. And quick spoiler alert, that's actually what I do. And you could actually do this for free directly in OBS, or you could get something called Voicemeeter to set it up across your entire computer. Now, I'm not gonna go into how to use those today because that's actually not what I'm doing, and there's a lot of other videos on how to set those up. And setting them up is actually kind of the reason I made this video. It can be kind of confusing figuring out how to route things correctly, and it can cause other problems that are really hard to fix. So a few years ago, I switched to doing my EQ and compression in this thing. It's the DBX286A. Now, it's now sold as the DBX286S, but they're basically the same thing. This thing has basically everything you need to get an amazing sound out of your microphone. It has an EQ, a compressor, a de-esser, and even a noise gate. Now, I absolutely love how this thing sounds, but the problem is it costs like $200 and it doesn't have any way to plug it into your computer. So you need to connect it through an audio interface, which means that by the time you buy this, an audio interface and a microphone, you've spent around $300, which is quite a lot of money for a good audio setup. So even though I like the sound of this, I never really recommended it unless someone was super serious about adjusting their audio setup to sound really, really good. So then a few months ago, I was browsing around and I randomly stumbled across this. This is Behringer's UV1. The UV1 is basically a clone of the DBX286 series, except it has a built-in USB audio interface. And it costs less than $150 when it's not on sale. So I switched to the UV1 for a while and I've been using it as my primary setup just to make sure that it's really a robust experience. And I've had zero problems with it the entire time I've been using it, and it sounds just like the 286S. In fact, I actually love to use it with the Behringer XM8500 microphone because that microphone is less than $15 and it confuses people so much when I tell them that my amazing sounding audio setup is with a $15 microphone. Actually, most of the time that microphone doesn't even cost $15. It costs less. And in fact, in the comparison at the beginning, that's what you were hearing. The UV1 plugged into the XM8500. So let me circle around back to the whole point of this video. The whole point of this video is if you learn to use EQ and compression, you could get significantly better audio out of the setup that you already have. And you could go do that today without buying anything else. Voicemeeter has a great EQ, compressor, and noise gate, and if you learn how to use that, you'll be prepared for when you switch to something like the UV1, which brings it out of your computer and gives you a little bit more hands-on experience and makes things just a little bit more convenient, honestly. So you don't need to buy a fancy Shure SM7B or some sort of expensive audio interface. What you really need to do is learn how to use tools that are required to get the sort of sound that you're looking for. And once again, let me reiterate, the software stuff sounds just as good. The only thing you do by switching to something like the Behringer UV1 is it's just a little bit more convenient. And yes, I actually use the Behringer UV1 and the XM8500. I'm not joking. You saw that I have an SM7B. I use that for when I'm recording music. I don't use it for gaming and live streaming because it makes so little of a difference there that I might as well just use the cheaper microphone just so I have an opportunity to teach people about what's really important in tuning your microphone setup for live streaming. So, you know, just a simple story of using the right tools for the job. And if you made it this far in the video, I'm gonna give you a couple extra nuggets that'll help improve your sound. The first one is try to keep your mic as close to your mouth as possible. This is like super important for getting a broadcast sound, and people don't do this all the time. You really need the mic between 3 to 6 inches from your mouth. If you put it any further than a foot away from from your face, the audio quality of your microphone is just gonna sound really, really bad. If you're more interested in that, search up videos on mic placement, but just for now, just try to keep it between 3 and 6 inches away from your face. A lot of people don't realize that is why their audio setup sounds so bad. The second tip is acoustic treatment. You can see I have some acoustic treatment on my walls, and it makes a huge difference. I could shout about this till I'm blue in the face, but everyone who has not tried it will just ignore me anyway. In case this helps you maybe understand how much of a difference it makes, this is a room with no acoustic treatment, and this is my room with acoustic treatment. And seriously, this is just the built-in microphones on my smartphone. And yes, I am renting, I am in an apartment, and no, this will not damage my walls. Well, I'll just end that discussion there. That's pretty much it. Put all those things together, audio processing, mic placement, and maybe some acoustic treatment, and you end up with exactly the setup that I use. These are the settings that I use for the Behringer UV1 if you want to copy them. All you really need to do is adjust the microphone gain until it hits the 0 mark when you talk, and if you want more bass, you could turn up the bass. If you want more treble, you could turn up the treble. You know, just tweak it to your taste. So that's all for this video. Hopefully this was helpful, and remember that no amount of fine-tuning your setup will make you create better content. So get out there, create better content, and most importantly, have fun. That's all for today. I'll see you next time.